is nothing wrong.
Due diligence here with an article from the Daily Dot. Tor is building an anonymous instant messenger. Forget the 16 billion romance between Facebook and WhatsApp. There's a new messaging tool worth watching. Tor, the team behind the world's leading online anonymity service, is developing a new anonymous instant messenger client according to documents produced at the Tor 2014 Winter Developers Meeting in Reykjavik, Iceland. The Tor Instant Messaging Bundle, also known as TIM, T-I-M-B, is set to work with the open-source Instant Bird messenger client in experimental builds released to the public by March 31st, 2014. The developers aim to build an encrypted off-the-record chatting and then bundle the client with the general Tor launcher in the following months. Pigeon, an older and more popular open-source chat client, was originally considered to be the foundation of the TIM, but was thrown out in favor of Instant Bird. However, Tor still plans to hire independent security contractors to audit the new software and test its mettle so that people in countries where communication for the purpose of activism is not met with intimidation, violence, and prosecution will be able to avoid the scrutiny of criminal cartels, corrupt officials, and authoritarian governments. Over the long term, TIM will likely become the messenger of choice for Tor users. Software such as Tor Chat and BitMessage already have significant user bases and smart advocates, but with the full weight of the Tor launcher and team behind it, there's little reason to imagine TIM won't succeed. The Tor project, a $2 million per year nonprofit consisting of 30 developers spread out over 12 countries, is pushing forward on TIM as part of an overall initiative to make Tor even easier to use for the average person. Also, in the pipeline are more localized support staff as well as point-and-click publish hidden services to make it extremely easy for anyone to create a deep website. But before I go further on this, and it's questionable if I will, should we trust Tor in general? Look at who's funding it. An article here from the Washington Post goes on to say the Fed pays for 60% of Tor's development. Can the users trust it? We already have a number of articles here. Tor Anonymity Network could be easily compromised, researchers say, according to RT.com. And here's the one from Slashdot that says, use Tor, get targeted by the NSA. An anonymous reader sends this news from Ars Technica. Quote, using online anonymity services such as Tor or sending encrypted email and instant messages are grounds for US-based communications to be retained by the NSA, even when they're collected inadvertently, according to a secret government document published Thursday. This is an article from 8 months ago, mind you. I continue. The memos outline procedures NSA analysts must follow to ensure that they stay within the mandate of minimizing data collected on U.S. citizens and residents. While the documents make clear that data collection and interception must cease immediately once it's determined a target is within the U.S., they still provide analysts with a fair amount of leeway, and that leeway seems to work to the disadvantage of people who take steps to protect their internet communications from prying eyes. For instance, a person whose physical location is unknown, which more often than not is the case when someone uses anonymity software from the Tor project, quote, will not be treated as a U.S. person unless such person can be positively identified as such or the nature or circumstances of the person's communications give rise to a reasonable belief that such person is a United States person, the secret document stated. So, lots to consider. We'll check out these sites they sourced to continue this process of due diligence. Procedures used by NSA to minimize data collection from U.S. persons. Exhibit B, full document. This article is from The Guardian, and it shows, the actual procedures they have on file for their employees. Here's one from The Guardian. The top secret rules that allow NSA to use U.S. data without a warrant. FISA court submissions show broad scope of procedures governing NSA's surveillance of Americans' communication. There are a number of articles here that are talking about this, but from what I gather, it may not be the best thing for you to invest your time and efforts into. I think that it has a high probability of being infiltrated, and clearly there's evidence that shows that it is being monitored by NSA and other government agencies from the United States, and I'm sure from other countries as well. This article from Ars Technica: use of Tor and email crypto could increase chances that NSA keeps your data. When it comes to surveillance rules, some US people are more equal than others. Basically reiterating what some of the other articles have said. Now back to the article from WashingtonPost.com. I'll read it now. The feds pay for 60% of Tor's development. Where did they learn that from? Let's see. This week, we learned that the NSA had managed to circumvent much of the encryption that secures online financial transactions and other activities we take for granted on the internet. How? By inserting backdoors into the very commercial software designed to keep sensitive medical records, bank files, and other private information. The NSA's sustained attempt to get around encryption calls into question many of the technologies people have come to rely on to avoid surveillance. One indispensable tool is Tor, the anonymizing service that takes a user's internet traffic and spits it out from some other place on the web so that its origin is obscured. So far, there's no hard evidence that the government has comprised the anonymity of Tor traffic, but some on a Tor-related email list recently pointed out that a substantial chunk of the TOR-ist Project's 2012 operating budget came from the Department of Defense, which houses the NSA. Here's actually a snippet of that article, of that budget, I believe. Consolidated schedule of expenditures of federal awards, the TOR Project Inc., an affiliate. For the year ended December 31st, federal grantor pass-through grantor program title. It says major programs, U.S. Department of Defense, pass-through from SRI International, blah, blah, blah. And then the total major program, $876,000 under the TOR project. Last year, DoD funding accounted for more than 40% of the TOR-ist project's $2 million budget. Other major donors include the U.S. State Department, which has an interest in promoting internet freedom globally, and the National Science Foundation. Add up all those sources, and the government covers 60% of the costs of TOR's development. And yet it's supposed to be anti-government, more transparency, but we all know the government isn't very transparent. It seems to be trying to give a tool to people who have abandoned what they know is already compromised, and wants to lull them into this deep sleep of, I can trust this new system, when clearly, if you don't follow the money, which everyone needs to do, if you want to do your due diligence, like I'm all about, you must follow the money trail. You gotta see that, whatever you're getting into could be something that's connected to something you're against, something you're not for, something you don't intend to be a part of. And this is something along those lines where people feel safe, and maybe they're giving information that they're trying to keep private by using this software to people who they're actually trying to keep that information from. Now, it makes sense that the government would be funding something like this. If you don't know, Operation COINTELPRO. This was an operation, I believe, by the FBI decades ago that talks about our government's, the United States government's covert, right here, a series of covert and at times illegal projects conducted by the United States FBI aimed at surveying, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting domestic political organizations. National Security Agency, NSA, Operation Project Minaret targeted the personal communications of leading Americans, including Senators Frank Church and Howard Baker, civil rights leaders including Dr. Martin Luther King, journalists, and athletes who criticized the Vietnam War. So clearly, if you read more about this, it's very interesting, but clearly our government has been capable of this in the past. They've been caught and guilty of this in the past. The Freedom of Information Act has released this information openly now, and really I have no doubt in my mind that the Tor program, the Tor software, the Tor movement is a part of this COINTELPRO movement. So do your research, follow the money trail, and really decide for yourself if it's software that you feel comfortable using. This is due diligence, doing just that. Talk to you in the morning.
There is